Hare Krishna. I welcome all of you to our Bhagavad Gita class. And before we start, let's do a recap. So the objective of this class is to enable reading of the shlok, to understand the meaning of the shlok, and to help understand the basic philosophy of Gita. So we are going to summarize this chapter, the contents of the Gita summarized. We have completed the first part of the chapter, which is Arjun's indecision and accepting Lord Krishna as his guru, and we are in the second part, which is from shlok number 11 to shlok number 13, which is Gyan or Sankhya Yoga, analysis of body and soul. So last time we actually did from shlok number 16 to 22, and I would like to let's recap this one again. So as we all know that this shlok from shlok number 11 to 13 is basically the answer given by Krishna to the lamentation of Arjun, as we have seen in our first chapter, that once Arjun was brought in front of Bhishma Pitama and Dronacharya, looking at them, he lost his composure and started lamenting because of compassion. And Krishna in the second chapter, via Gyan Yoga, is helping Arjun to come out of this lamentation. So what we did from 16 chapter to first from 16 shlok to 25 shlok, it is basically Krishna is talking about the characteristics of body and soul. And let us recap all the shlok from 16 to 22 that we did the last time, and look at the central message of the shlok. So the 16th shlok is Na sato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate satah ubhyorapi dishtontas tvanvyostas tvadarshibhi. So here we saw na asato vidyate bhavo. Asat is temporary, and we saw that body is temporary, which is asat, and sat is eternal, and that is soul. Sat is soul, which is eternal, and this is the message, and that with the Shrivi are the seers of the truth. And what we learned in this shlok is that Krishna has started explaining in detail the characteristics of body and soul. And the first thing he mentioned is that body is temporary, it does not exist permanently, and soul is eternal. And this is what has been observed and concluded by the seers of truth. And we took the example of coconut and saw how the liberated soul is just like the dried coconut, which does not get bewildered because of the outer covering of the coconut. It does not get bewildered because of those. Yeah, that's what we learned in this particular shlok. Then we went to the 17th shlok, which talks about Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Now here Krishna says Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena, and yen he's pointing back to the 16th shlok that he has mentioned, that is the soul. Yena sarvam idam tatam. What? The soul, which is tatam, is pervading throughout the body, that is Avinashi. That is what is that we take away from the shlok is that the soul is indestructible. It is Avinashi, and the soul is imperishable. Here says Vinasham Avyayasyasya. Avyayasyasya means Avyasya. Avyaya means that cannot be finished. So it is imperishable, and this imperishable soul cannot be destroyed. Yeah, the symptoms of the soul is consciousness that pervades through the body. So how do we know that soul exists? It is because of the consciousness that we see in the living being. In the living body, as the body is living because of the soul being inside. And how do we know that the soul is there? It is because the consciousness is away, the soul goes out. When we say the person is passed away, when the person is passed away, what is passed away? It is the soul which has passed away. And when the soul passes away, then what happens? The living body becomes a dead body. It becomes that everything remains same except that the soul has passed away. So that is what we learned from this shlok. And we also learned about the size of the soul. And here the Shvetashvatara Upanishad and the Mundaka Upanishad, from both the Upanishads we talk about what is the size of the soul. If we take a hair strand and look at the tip of the hair and divide it into 100 parts, and then we take one part of that divided 100 parts and divide it again into 100 parts. So whatever is left, so you can imagine how small it is. 1 by 10,000 part, if we are doing to the tip of the hair, that is the size of the soul. Yeah, the soul is a spiritual atom. It is extremely small. You can imagine how small it is, right? This is what we learned about the size of the soul, and then we learned about where is the soul situated. So as per Mandak Upanishad, the soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And it is not only the individual soul which is staying in the heart of the living entity, but also the super soul, the Paramatma, Krishna as Paramatma, is also seated in the heart of every living entity. And this Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter. He says, Sarvasya chaham hidi sannavishtu. I am seated in everyone's heart. And then in the 18th chapter, the 61st shlok, he says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hideshu Arjun tishtati. O Arjun, the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. And also in Kathopanishad, it talks about how both the Jivatma, which is the Anuatma, that is the individual soul, and the Vibhuatma, the super soul, how they both are situated in the heart. Yeah, so this is also reconfirmed in the Kathopanishad. Now we move to the 18th shlok. We read, Antavant ime deha nityasyokta sharirina anashino apramesyasya tasmad yuddhasva bharata. Now what Krishna is trying to do, he's explaining, he's asking Arjun to come out of lamentation. Yeah, come out of compassion, come out of lamentation. There's no need for him to lament, right? Why? Because again he explains in 18th chapter, Antmant ime deha. Deha is our body. The body is antmant. It is perishable. It is perishable. It is perishable. If not today, after some time, but body will die. Yeah, that is what is the antmant ime deha. Nitya syokta sharirina. But the sharir, the wisdom in the sharir, which is the soul, is nitya syokta. It is nitya. It is eternal. It is eternal. So soul is eternal, nitya, and anashino. Anashino is indestructible. And then Krishna introduces another word here called aprameyasya. Aprameyasya means it is immeasurable. Yeah, it is so small, as we have seen in the previous shlok, that the size of the soul is 1 by 10,000th of a part. Because it is so small, so it is immeasurable. So he says, Tasma Yudhasu Bharata. So Bharat is Arjun, or descendant of Bharat. That's why get up and fight, because the deha, the body is anyway perishable. Yeah. And anyway, soul is nitya. So it is eternal, it is indestructible, it is immeasurable, and you cannot kill it by any weapon. So get up and do your duty as a Kshatriya. Get up and fight. Yeah. And then in the 19th shlok, we saw ya enam veti hantaram, yas chainam manyate hatam, ubhau to na vijanito, nayam hanti nahanyate. Here what we did was that he says, ya enam veti hantaram, those who think the soul is killing. Yas chainam manyate hatam, those who think the soul is killed. Ubho means both of them. Vijanito means knowledgeable. They both does not have the right knowledge, because Nayam Hanti Nahanyate, because the soul does not kill or get killed. Here Krishna says that neither the soul kills nor it gets killed, right? It is only the body that actually engages in war, and also it kills the body, but it is not killing. Neither the soul is beyond it. It does not get killed, right? This is what, and we went into detail of the shlok. And then he introduces more concept about soul. He says, "Na jayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyo, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sharire." Now here, Krishna says that the soul na jayate, it does not take birth, mriyate, it does not die, vakadachin. So the for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuva. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. Ajo, unborn, Nitya, eternal, Shashvata, everlasting, and Purano is perennial. So these are the additional qualities that Krishna talks about the soul. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. He is not killed when the body is killed. So here he is talking about that it is not the soul that takes birth, but it is the body that takes birth. It is the body that dies. But the soul in the body is imperishable. It is Ajo, the soul in the body is unborn, it is eternal, it is everlasting, and it is old because it is Adi. Yeah, until it gets liberated, it will continue. Yeah. So Krishna says, so it is the body that takes birth, it takes death. It is the body that has the past, Bhutva, it is the present, and the body that will have a future. But the soul inside is not related, does not have all these things. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. And it is not killed when the body is killed. So soul never dies. He is explaining to Arjun the soul. You have to look at people as soul, not as a body. Finally, the body anyway will die, whether you kill or not. But the body is going to die. But the soul is Purano. It continues, is Shashvat, right? Then he says in the next slok, Veda Vinashinam Nityam Yah Enam Ajam Avyayam Katham Sa Purusha Partha Kam Khatyan Dhyantikam. Ved means knowledgeable. Ved, no. Avinashi, no. O Partha, Avinashi is eternal. Ya Enam Ajam Avyayam. It is unborn and it is Avyaya. Avyaya is impressible. So see, you can see that Krishna is again and again talking about the same qualities or excellent qualities of the soul. He's keep on telling Arjun that get up. Why he's telling again and again? So that you have to understand. It is like it is not a changeable thing. This is how it is. You have to keep on telling the message again and again so that it goes inside the person. So he's telling in a same message to Arjun again and again. That soul is Avinashi, it is indestructible, it is eternal, it is unborn, it is unchangeable. So Katham Sa Purusha Partha. Then, O Parth, Arjun, the person who knows about it, then how can that kill anyone or get anyone to kill? Yeah, so we went into detail about that in the last class. Now, then in the next slow, he talks about Vasansi Jinani Yatha Vihaya Navani Grihati Naroparani Tatha Sharirani Vihaya Jirnanya Anyani Sinyati Navani Dehe. Vasansi is garments. Jirani is old. Tatha Vihaya, just like Vihayas will leave. What do we leave? Old garments and Grihati, and wear Nava new garments. Just similarly, just like the people do that, similarly, Sharir, what does the Sharir do? What does the body do? When the what does the soul do? Similarly, the souls, the Sharirani, the soul, it when it it leaves Vihaya, Jirani, the old body, Sanyati Navani Dehi, and the Dehi jo hai, it will take the new body. Dehi is the soul. It takes the new body. Just like the body changes, right? Changing bodies is similar to changing clothes. So this is what we had completed in our last class. And here, so Arjun says, okay, so he says, okay, now get up. You have to fight. You have to come out of this lamentation because it is just like changing clothes. So get up and fight and get up and do your duty. It is your responsibility. Now, if you look at it, Bhishma and Drona, basically their bodies also getting old. And what you are going to do? this is a religious war. This war that is happening is a religious war, and it is against adharm. And Bhishma and Drona, they are on the adharm side. They are supporting the adharma side. So, and that is because they are bound with their body. That is a bodily commitment that they have, because of which they are bound on the adharm side. So you have to relieve them. They have to relieve the soul of that body. So there's nothing wrong. You get up and do your duty. And it is said, it is later Krishna will also say that if a kshatriya while fighting actually dies, then he's doing that because of his duty, so he'll actually go to higher planets. And in this case, Bhishma and Drona, they have been, although because of their commitment they are on the dharma side, but as a soul they are extremely pious, and definitely after that they will get a better better place. They'll be placed better. Maybe they'll go to Vaikunt. Yeah. So Krishna says to Arjun, so get up and do your duty. And then Arjun says, but then if I fire weapons, won't they get hurt? And then the answer is given by Krishna. So we start with from the 23rd shlok today. We will not be repeating the shlok. I will be reciting the shlok twice, and then we'll go to details of the shlok. Shlok 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakah, na chainam kledyantyaapo, na shoshayati marutah. Again. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakah, na chainam kledyantyaapo, na shoshayati marutah. So here, Krishna answers to Arjun that no, na enam chindanti shastrani. Shastrani is weapons. So the soul, enam is here, it's the soul. Chindanti, it cannot be cut into pieces by the weapon. Na enam dhati pavaka. Even the fire, it cannot be burnt. It cannot be burned by the fire. Yeah. No chainam. And na kledyantyaapo. Kledyan is basically getting wet. Apo is water. It will not even get by the water. Na shoshyanti maruta. And it will not get withered by the marut wind. So here, Krishna answers to Arjun that, whatever, the soul cannot be cut into pieces by any of the weapons. Whatever weapon you use, yeah, whether you cannot cut the soul into pieces. It is so small. It is so small. It will basically, the body will die, but the soul will move out. It will come out. Nenam dahati pavaka. It is so small. Even pavak, even the fire cannot, fire weapons or even water weapons, or even by none of the weapons that you have, you can damage the soul. You can damage the soul. So you don't have to worry. Get up and fight. And in the next shlok, he says, the shlok number 24, we say, Achedyoyam adahayoyam akledyo shosya evacha nitya sarvakata stanur achloyam sanatanah. Achedyoyam adahayoyam akledyo ashosya evacha nitya sarvakata stanur achloyam sanatanah. Yeah. Now, this is Krishna is giving a word to each of the explanation that he has given in the previous shlok. He says, in the previous shlok, he says, Nainam chindanti shastrani. It cannot be cut into pieces by any weapon. And here says achedya. It means the soul is achedya. It is unbreakable. It is achedya. It is unbreakable. Then he says, in the previous shlok, he says, Nainam dahati pavaka. It cannot be burnt by the fire. So in the next shlok, he says, Adahyo. Adahyo means it cannot be burnt by the fire. Then he says, it cannot be moistened by the water. And here he says, Akledyo. Akledyo means it cannot be moistened by the water. And then he says, then in the previous shlok, he says, it cannot be withered by the wind. So here says it, Ashoshya. Ashoshya means it cannot be withered by the wind. right? So these are the again one word qualities of the previous slok that he has mentioned. Yeah, achedyo yam, adayo yam, akledyo, akledyo, ashosya evacha, and along with that, he talks about more qualities. He says nitya, that has he has been talking about that from the previous. It is eternal, sarvagata. Sarvagata means it is pervading everywhere. So whether you go to water, it is fish in the form of fish, or water animals, it is there. It is in air. It is anywhere, whether it is fire. So it is sarvagata. The soul is pervading in some or other body in all over. So it is sarvagata. It is sthanu. Sthanu means it is unchangeable. Sarun means unchangeable. And achalo. Unchangeable means it is not that we have read, we have actually seen in the 13th shlok, Dehino asmin yatha dehe, komaram yovanam jara, how we saw that the body keeps on changing from boyhood to youth to old age, and then finally it dies. Yeah. So it is change. But what happens to the soul? It is unchangeable. It remains same. It keeps on moving. And then when the body dies, it moves to the next body. Yeah. But what is it looking for? It is basically the what is the final destination? It has to get liberated. The final destination the show soul is, it has to get liberated. That is what it is looking for, right? Sthanur. So it is unchangeable. Achalo. It is immovable also. Think about plants. Yeah, it is achalo. It is immobile also. And it is sanatana. It is everlasting. So this is again more qualities of the shlok, that of the soul, that Krishna is explaining to Arjun. And then in the 25th slok, he talks about avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Again, avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Avyakt. Avyakt means it is invisible. Avyakt means it is invisible. We know the size of the soul. The size of the soul is 1/10,000 times. It is so small, so small. It cannot be visible in the by any of the materially available microscope or any of the most powerful instrument that could be available in the on the material world. It is so small that it is invisible. Achintyo. Achintyo is, it is inconceivable. It is unconceivable again. The spiritual soul is it is spirit. It is a part of spirit. It is a part of spiritual world. It is not a part of the material world. So it cannot be conceived. It cannot be by any experiment that you do. You cannot find it. It cannot be conceived by any of the experiments that could be done on the material world, because this is spiritual. It is inconceivable. It is so small that it is inconceivable. Yeah. And the only way to conceive that yes, soul is there is by the shruti, by the Vedic words, by the Vedic wisdom. Only by the Vedic wisdom we can prove the existence of shlok, existence of soul. That is the only way that we can know. It is talked about by Krishna himself, the supreme personality of Godhead, the final authority, that this is what the reality is. Soul exists, and life only comes from life. Life only comes from life. It cannot come from chemicals. So that is the final authority. Krishna is the final authority. In Bhagavad Gita, he talks about it. And then our other Upanishads like Katha Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Mandaka Upanishad, all those Upanishad talks about the soul, the properties of soul, and gives in detail. So this is the final authority. It's only through this, because it is spiritual, only through Vedas and by Bhagavad Gita we can know about we can conceive and understand about soul. Avikaryo. Avikaryo is again, it is unchangeable. It is unchangeable means it remains, as we saw, it remains as is. It keeps on changing the body, but it remains as is. It does not It does not, it is not that today it is an individual soul and tomorrow it will become a super soul. It doesn't happen like that. It never leaves its individuality. It is an individual soul. It takes bodies, different bodies, and finally, when it gets liberated, it is again remains as a individual soul. It does not become a super soul. As we know, the super soul is like a ocean. Super soul is like a ocean, and individual soul is just like a drop of the ocean. It's just like a drop of the ocean, right? And then and and then uh, this is how it's unchangeable. Yeah. Tasma devam viditvenam nanu shochitumasi. Again, Krishna says, so knowing this, when you know that the soul is avyakto, invisible, it is inconceivable, it is unchangeable, so get up and fight. You should not na anushochit. Anushochit means anushochit means it is shochitam is lamentation. Arasi means leaden. Forget that. So do not lament, O Arjun. Each of the slok, the last word that Krishna is speaking in each of the slok is Nanu Shochitam Marhasi. Basically, each is talking about do not lament. So you should not lament. Yeah, that is what he'll be talking about. Now, we talked about Gyan Yoga, and we talked about that from shlok number 11 to shlok number 13. It is about Gyan Yoga. Yeah? So it's about Gyan Yoga, right? And now from shlok number 16th to 25th, Krishna is specifically talking about the characteristics of soul. From shlok number 16 to 25th, Krishna is talking about, especially about characteristics of soul and body. And he also talked about the super soul and the relation between the super soul and the soul and what happens. That's now after this, till 30, he will keep on explaining to Arjun. So let us see now what happens in the next slok. In the next slok, which is slok number 26, Krishna says, fine, as per the Vedic wisdom, it is soul. I've explained to you about the soul, about the body, the super soul, and the relations with them. But if you don't, if you don't, go for the Vedic wisdom, then let's look at the other the what the atheists talk about, how the body, the life of the body. Yeah. Let's please repeat after me. Ath chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. Ath chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. Ath chainam nitya jatam. Now, if you don't if you don't want to believe that soul is there and body is separate and soul is separate, and if you believe, if you see that anam, the soul, it is nitya jatam, it takes birth, it it always takes birth, nityam va manyase mritam, and it actually dies after that. Yeah. Let's look at other philosophies. Krishna says, let's look at the other philosophy. The other philosophy is that the soul, it is nitya jatam. It takes birth every time, and it dies, manyase mritam. It dies every time. Tathapi tvam mahabaho. Mahabaho is being addressed to Arjun. O Arjun, O Mahabaho, na nainam shochitum arhasi. Shochitum is lament, arasi, you should not. Yeah. So even if you think that the soul takes birth and dies every time, still you should not limit. Yeah. Now here Krishna says, let's look at the meaning. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. So basically, at that point of time, also, it's not that everyone, everyone believed in the Vedic wisdom, they were atheists. And they had their own philosophies, yeah, saying that there's nothing like Atma, or even if Atma is there, it actually takes birth and it dies. Yeah. And like the modern scientists that they talk about that, the body is made up of chemicals. Yeah, the body is made up of some physical element and chemicals, and at some point of time, some reactions happen because of which life enters the body, and finally the growth happens. That is how the modern scientists talk about, who are atheists and who don't believe in soul and this journey of body and soul. Yeah. So Krishna says to Arjun, even if you want to believe that philosophy, still you should not lament. Why you should not lament? Because if that is true, that it soul is Atma takes birth and immediately dies each time, and this is how the process of birth and life happens, then there's no sinful reaction. If whatever you have done, it actually goes and finishes in this life itself, then why should you be worried about the sinful reaction? I think, remember in the first chapter, Arjun was also worried about sinful reactions, that if he doesn't, if he kills Bhishma, Drona, and all his relatives, he will also have sinful reaction of killing the family members. So this again he says here. And then in 27th Shlok, Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmada pariharyarthe na tum shochitum arhasi. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmada pariharyarthe na tum shochitum arhasi. So again, shochitum arhasi. Do not lament, right? You should not lament. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu. Now Krishna says, Jatasya is that which has taken birth. Jatasya is that which has taken birth. He dhruva mrityu. Dhruva means is sure. Dhruva is sure. What is sure? Something which has taken birth is sure to mrityu, die. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu. Jatasya, something which has taken birth, is sure to die. And Dhruvam Janma Mritasya Cha. Dhruvam is for sure. What is sure? Janma Mritasya Cha. And that has died will definitely be reborn. Will be reborn. So Krishna says that whatever has taken birth has to die. And whatever has died will take birth again. Tasmad apariharyarthe. Now this is an unavoidable process. Tasmad, thereafter, Natam shochitum harasi. You should not lament. You should do your duty and should not lament. So as we all know that, anyone who takes birth will die, and then it will take birth again, and again it will die. And that is the process of birth and death. That is the chakra of birth and death in which everyone is. Yeah. So Krishna says that is anywhere there. Yeah. And this is unavoidable. Then why should you not do your duty properly? Because when you are born, you have to perform your duty. You have to discharge your duty. And Arjun is a Kshatriya. What is the duty of a Kshatriya? Is to ensure the dharma prevails, to fight against adharma, to fight against adharma. And his duty is to fight against adharma. So it means irrespective of who the people are, yeah, if he has to perform his duty and kill the people who are on the side of adharma. Yeah. So why should he lament? There's no reason for him to lament about that. He should rather, in case he does not do his duty and decides not to fight, what will happen? What will happen? He will get degraded. He will get degraded. Why will he get degraded? He will get degraded because by not performing his duty properly, he will actually have a negative karma on himself, and that will be the effect for him in the new life, in the next life. So Krishna says that therefore this is something which is fixed. It has to happen. So so this is unavoidable, and you should also discharge your duty without lamenting. Yeah. What about all of us? Now, when you look at us, we are also in this cycle of birth and death. Yeah. We are also in this cycle of birth and death. And what we need to do is this is a rare opportunity that we have got as human. Yeah. And this is a rare opportunity we have got as human. And and we must take the best benefit of this human life, which is so precious that we have got. We should help to, we should try to get liberated. We should try to help our soul to get liberated. And how we can do that? It's only by strengthening our relation with Krishna. And how we can do that? It is by chanting the holy name, by chanting the holy name, by hearing about Krishna, by listening about Krishna. What we can do, we can strengthen our relationship with Krishna. And when we strengthen our relationship with Krishna, we will move forward, we'll help the soul to move forward in the direction towards liberation. Now, next slok number 28. Avyakta avyaktaadini bhutani vyaktam madhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. Avyaktaadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. Now, in the 28th slok, Krishna says, Avyakta Dini Bhutani. Avyakta means it is unmanifested. All the beings, all the Bhutani, all the beginning. Avyakta means it is unmanifested in the beginning. And then what happens? It gets Vyakt Madhyani. It gets created in the Madhyani, in the middle. O Bharat, O descendant of Bharat, Avyakta Nidhan Yeva Tatra Ka Paridevana. And then again it becomes unmanifested when it becomes destroyed, becomes vanquished. Tatra Ka Paridevana. Then what is the reason to lament? There is no point to lament. Now, let me explain you this particular shlok by giving an example. Avyakt means it is unmanifested. So that is how the entire living entity or the things are, and we'll talk about this later in the future chapters in Gita. So let us take an example of a skyscraper. Yeah. Now, before building the skyscraper, what happens? It is the material which is used for making the skyscraper is basically unmanifested. It is in the form of elements it's in a physical material form, like earth, water, fire, air. It's all material. It's a physical material which is available. Yeah. So it is avyakt in the starting. It is unmanifested in the starting. And then what happens? It is those materials are then used to create a skyscraper. Those materials are used to create a building. It is used to create a building, right? So in Madhyani, what has happened? The building has been created, right? Then what will happen? Once the life of the building is over, maybe 100 years, 200 years, or whatever time, again it will get broken, it will get vanquished, it will get, and then again all those things will get merged back to the physical element. It will to the earth again. It will again become, it will get vanquished, get destroyed, and it will become unmanifested and will take the form of earth, water, whatever, so it will again get animable. So everything is like that. Initially it is unmanifested, then it becomes manifested, it becomes something, and then again it gets destroyed. Yeah. If you see a journey of the soul, it is initially unmanifested, then it takes a body. Yeah, it's just like a dress, it will wear a dress. Yeah, and then it will again become unmanifested. Yeah, so this is the journey that the soul takes. So tatra ka paridevana. Then what is the need to lamentation? This is the normal cycle. Then what is the need to lament? And we go to the next slok, which is called a amazing shlok. Yeah, it says, आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वापयेनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्. It says, again repeat, आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः So this is called amazing shlok or Ashcharya shlok. So Ashcharyavat pashyati kaschidena. Some people look at the soul as pashyat. Pashyat is to see the shlok, to see the soul as amazing. Ashcharya. They are amazed to see that to 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 look at on the soul. Looking means by looking by hearing. It is amazing. Some Ashcharyavad vadati tathaiva chanya. Some describe the soul as amazing. Ashcharyavad vachanai manya shunoti. Some hear of him as amazing. Shrutva piyena ved na cheva kashit. Even after hearing about him, some people cannot understand him at all. So let us look at the meaning of this shlok. Some look on the soul as amazing. Some describe him as amazing. Some hear him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So this is called amazing shlok. And how amazing it is. Think about the soul. It is the same small spark, which is 1 by 10,000 part of the tip of air that exists in a giant body like elephant, in a giant tree like banyan tree, or in a small microbes that we can't even see by our eyes. Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Yeah. And this soul, till it is in the body, we have all the consciousness. And once it is not in the body, we can't do anything. Till it is in the body, we feel the pain, we feel the life, we feel we are happy, we feel everything. As soon as this soul, this spark, which we can't, which is invisible, inconceivable, which is immeasurable, which is indestructible, once this goes away, the entire life goes out, right? Yeah, isn't it amazing? We have read last from shlok number 16 to shlok number 25. We read about the characteristics of the soul, how it is unborn, how it is immeasurable, how it is imperishable, how it is indestructible. Isn't it amazing? It is a God creation. It is a part and parcel of God, so it has to be amazing. Yeah, even listening about it is amazing. Yeah, but even after all this gyan, after all this knowledge that is being shared, many people will still not be able to understand it, will not be able to believe it. And that is absolutely fine. Yeah. Shrutva piyena vedana cheva kashit. Shrutva means after listening, ved is to knowledge. Is no ved, does not understand. Cheva kashit. Many people will not even understand about the soul, even after all the talks that has been done by Krishna, which is very normal, which is also very it's okay, because this is something which is spiritual. And to understand this, you have to be you have to be austere, you have to be pure. To gain this knowledge, you have to be at that platform, yeah, where you can receive it, you can understand it, you can hear it, you can understand it. Yeah. And that is why, so if you can't understand, that's also fine, because you have to be there to understand it. So soul is extremely amazing. This is the 29th shlok, and all this knowledge that has been talked about from shlok number 13 to shlok number 30 about the Gyan Yoga and Sankhya Yoga or Sankhya Yoga is now getting culminated in the last shlok about this topic, which is Dehi Nityam Avadhyoyam, Dehi Nityam Avadhyoyam, Dehe Sarvasya Bharatah, Tasmat Sarvani Bhutani, Na Tvam Shochitum Arhasi. Repeat. देहि नित्यम अवधयोयम देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. Here Krishna says, Dehi, yam is this, Dehi is the soul. Dehe sarvasya is in all body. Sarvasya in all the Dehe, in all the body. O Bharat, O descendants of Bharat, O Arjun, this Dehi is in all the living entities that you see around, it is there. And then Tasmat, that's why Chochitumarasi should not lament for any living entity, because this is a normal cycle that everyone goes through. So Krishna says, O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Dehi is Nityam and Audhyogam. It is basically eternal and it is indestructible. So, therefore, you need not grieve for any living beings. Yeah. So, this is the last slok of Gyan Yoga or Sankhya Yoga. And what I would like to do now is I would like to summarize what we have learned in this particular chapter. So, what our takeaways is there from the Gyan Yoga or Sankhya Yoga? It is the body is temporary. What we have learned in this part is that the body is temporary, it is perishable, and it grows and perishes in due course. It is asat, it is grows and perishes in due course. So we learned the 13th slok. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana muhyate. So body is temporary and grows and perishes in due course. Then we talked about bodily relations, like body is also temporary. Matra Sparshashu Konteya, Shitoshna Sukh Dukhda, Agama Payano Anitya, Tam Titikshasa Bharata. So all the body relations that we have, that is also temporary, just like this body. It happens, it is, it is like the example is just like a river is flowing and there are straws which comes together when they are flowing in the flowing river. They are together for some time and later again it moves away. It again moves away. Similarly, the relationships that we have in the body is only for limited to this body. Even in our lifetime, because the karma, the people come together. Yeah, they come together, they stay together for some time, and again, just like the straw separates out, it moves away. Or you can also talk about that like a train passenger, a moving train where people, passengers are, some people are already sitting, some people steps in, they stay together for maybe a few hours or maybe a day, and then they get down. Similarly, the relations that we have in this world, the bodily relations, that is temporary. But what is permanent? Permanent is soul. Soul is eternal. And it transmigrate from one body to another till it gets liberated. It will transmigrate from one body to another till it gets liberated. So soul is Sat. It is Sat. Then we also learned soul is unborn, indestructible, imperishable, immeasurable, unchangeable. Then soul cannot be cut into pieces, it cannot be burned, it cannot be moistened, it cannot be withered away. Nayanam chinnanti shastani, nayanam dahati pavaka, nayanam. So you cannot do that, right? It is invisible, it is inconceivable, it is so all these are qualities of soul. Then we also learned that the soul, it is covered by the gross body, which is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And then it is also covered by the subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and ego. And this is what travels when the till the soul gets liberated, when it moves from one body to another, the mind, intelligence, and ego that travels with the body. With death, the gross body goes back to the unmanifested state. It again go back to the earth. Yeah, earth, water, fire. It actually gets unmanifested back to the physical elements, right? Once the soul is liberated, it gets freed from the subtle body. It is 1 by 10,000 of the part of the tip. That is the size of the soul. It is located in the heart along with super soul. The soul and super soul, they are like two birds on the same tree. The two birds on the same tree. The individual soul is on the lower branch, and the super soul is sitting on the higher branch. The individual soul in the lower branch is busy enjoying the fruits of the tree, and the super soul, which is sitting on the higher branch, is actually watching the individual soul. It is watching the individual soul, and the individual soul is busy eating the ripened fruits of the tree. Sometimes it is sweet, sometimes it is sour. And because it is so busy in eating the fruits of the tree, it moves from one tree to another tree. Similarly, this individual soul is nothing but us. We are so much entangled in the material world, enjoying the fruits, busy with the material world in such a way that we keep on having our sorrows and happiness in our life, and we are so busy in getting this enjoyment in our life that we actually forget the to look at the upper bird, which is the Paramatma, sitting on in the same heart. Yeah. And why are we here? So the soul is here in the material world and is suffering and is bound to the cycle of birth and death. And that's how we move from one body, our soul moves from one body to another. We are entangled in the cycle of birth and death. And why are we so? It is because of our forgetfulness on the relationship between the soul and super soul. Because we have forgotten the relation between us and our super soul, what has happened? We are entangled in this cycle of birth and death. And this human life is very rare. We should not let it go. We should work to ensure that the lost relationship is revived. That is the goal of our human life, because this human life is very rare. What we should do is, how we can revive this is by chanting the holy name of God, that is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare